Today we are at the Villa Paulina farm in Piedecuesta in the sector of Guadalajara in the Barro Blanco area. Today we are going to know, as such, the processes that make their environmental solutions in our vermicomposting and vermiculture manufacturing processes, as such, the transformation of organic waste and the manufacture of fertilizers for the Colombian agriculture. My name is Sebastián Quiñones, I am the general manager of the company. Well, the story begins more or less 6-7 years ago. I was finishing high school and at the time, well, my dad asked me what I wanted to do with my life. Yes. At that time, well, I was clear that I wanted to go to college, obviously, and I was very clear, from what I had seen of him, that I did not want to be an employee, that the employee life can be good but it always has its pros and cons, and for me the cons were more than the pros, so I wanted to have my own business, to be independent and in one way or another, work in a company with my father. At that moment Sebastian's involvement in EBS began, because since he started, his first semesters, all his work was focused on the company, on the development, on the products, on the processes that today we are executing. Some of them designed by Sebastian. I entered the university and all 4.5 years of my career were focused solely and exclusively on the work of the company, to use the university as a research platform to find new ways, new businesses, new markets to help the company, as soon as I enter, to grow in one way or another. EBS Environmental Solutions was linked to our green business window since 2018. They have worked constantly to meet the environmental criteria that could endorse it as a green business. During the year 2020, they worked hard, and the CMB recognizes the work they have done. Always with the goal of meeting the majority of 51%, in order to obtain the endorsement of confidence that gives the corporation in our institution. So they have a professional assigned from our office who advised them, who strengthened them and made recommendations with an improvement plan in order to comply with all these criteria. And by the end of 2020 they were able to attend the compliance endorsement ceremony as a green business formally certified by the CMB. Worm farming as such is a very important process for us, because it was the one with which we started our business. 15 years ago it was our first product, our first process with which we went to the market, with which we became known, and for us it is very dear to us, so we are going to explain what it is in essence, how it operates, how it works, how it is fed, and then we are going to give you a sample of the final texture of the product. Here is this structure that is assembled with a roof and with these tarpaulins. What is intended is that the earthworms have as much darkness as possible, because earthworms are photophobic, that is, they are afraid of light, so as long as they have a good adaptation of darkness they will always be working in the superficial part of the bed. How they feed, and I am going to uncover this tarpaulin here. I am going to remove the darkness for the earthworms. All this that you see here, and I am going to stand on top of the bed, are little worms eating cow manure. All these are pieces of manure, and all this that I am going to show you, there you can see the worms already. They are the worms that have already eaten all the manure, and when the bed has this smooth texture, that looks like yellow, like flat, it means that it is ready to feed again. How often is this process done? This process is done more or less, in our operation, every 15 days, so every 15 days we have a bed that is flat like this, we return and apply manure and it returns with this rough and earthy structure. After 15 days when it returns and is under these conditions is that the worms have already eaten the manure and it is time to reapply manure. The red California earthworm has a characteristic, which is that it needs darkness and humidity to be able to proliferate as such, so we provide our 50 earthworm beds with the conditions of darkness in total darkness and humidity, providing constant water irrigation every 2 or 3 days, this water to start, as such, with the issue of sustainability. We take it from a small lake that we created here inside the plant, and all the water that is collected in the lake is simply irrigated between the beds. Then we are going to show how the feeding process is done, how often it is done, so come on Jose, bring the cart. This is fresh material recently collected from stables. Fresh is that it has 20 days after being captured from a stable. So as I was showing you, this point where the bed looks flat, means that the umbrella ate all the manure and a more or less thick layer is placed at that height of material, so that the worm can go up, eat the fresh material and return and leave us this texture. We take the cattle manure from the cattle that are here, inside the farm, the cattle that we have, the cattle that arrive, and in turn, from other contacts and contracts that we have with external companies that provide us with this manure. This process is done every 15 days, after we feed them all, we water and apply water more or less twice a week. Why is water applied? The worm needs to have an ideal temperature condition because if it cannot burn it can asphyxiate, then the water allows it to live cool and additionally take the water it needs for its own maintenance. After the bed has this texture, the worm is here, in the first 10 centimeters, there you can see the worms eating manure, so now I do a harvesting process, then as the earthworm is in the first 10 centimeters. What is done is to remove that layer, those first 10 centimeters that are full of earthworms, they are removed from there and the material that remains below, you see, all these are earthworms. The material that remains below has no earthworms, because the worms are already in the first 10 centimeters, if they have the ideal penumbra conditions, if they have the ideal water conditions, if they have stable feeding, the worm is in these first 10 centimeters. From there downwards there is not a single worm to be found, then the worms are removed and this is what comes out here. This is already worm castings. This is material that is taken to a patio to be dried in a segmented patio in the sun. The humidity is reduced from 80 to 20% and after the humidity goes down to 20% it goes through a pulverization process to give it a final texture for presentation for sale to the public. So this is the harvesting process. Well, what I want to show you at this moment are these 3 seedbed modules where we are looking for a periodical repopulation of the beds that have more worms, and what we are looking for in these modules is to make different types of feeding for our worms, specifically looking for them to show how much potential they have depending on the variation that is made. Module 1 is only managed with manure. Module 2 is manure and rumen and Module 3 is manure and other types of organic waste. Well, much more vegetable. In one way or another. What we are trying to show you here is that the worm population in this type of module is much larger. It is also important that we can notice this. This is a worm egg. The worm egg incubates more or less for a period of 14 to 21 days, and from each of the eggs that an earthworm has we can obtain between 20 and 25 new worms. It is also very important to note that the earthworm only reproduces in a temperature of more or less 20 degrees, that is why we always look for these nodules to be quite dark and quite humid. If you can appreciate the humidity of the material, it is quite high, making it easier for the earthworms to have the optimal conditions for them to reproduce. At this moment I am going to show you the earthworm in its completely adult stage. This earthworm is more or less 8 to 9 months old. It is an earthworm that is already in its reproductive stage, however it is not in its total adulthood, yes? In these modules what we are looking for is to have more juvenile and young adult worms than very young or very adult worms. Why? so that we can increase the reproductive cycle of the earthworms. More or less every 7 days they are breeding and produce 10 to 12 eggs for each cycle of appearance, which allows us to increase the size and population of an earthworm culture in a period of 6 months, between 8 to 12 times. Here I am going to show you. As such, I am going to show you how the earthworm population is in this. That its state is more specific and much more favorable, so to speak, that we have many earthworm modules. In this case, this is a completely adult earthworm. It is an earthworm whose clitellum, specifically this part is completely formed with this clitellum is that they connect and reproduce. If we can see, it is looking to get between my fingers to find darkness and find moisture. The worm has another advantage, and that is that it is somewhat like a piggy. It can eat any type of material, or what I like most is cow manure. But just as it can eat cow manure, it can eat kitchen scraps, it can eat paper, it can eat cardboard, it can eat poultry manure, it can eat diapers, which we would find disgusting, but the earthworm is capable of degrading and transforming them. It can eat sewage. The earthworm can eat all the handles, rabbits, worms, chickens, goats, yes. So, some people used to say that it was necessary to chop the worms, but no, the worms do not need to chop them. They are capable with the enzymes they generate in their digestive system to degrade. Look how beautiful this is. This is beautiful, as well as they are capable of degrading small things, as small as those. Enters, degrades it, and after a month it becomes pure yarn until it degrades it totally. We believe that it is very important to return to the countryside because we are currently losing the relationship we had with food production as such. We have reached a point where specifically to produce food is already done in a completely chemical and technician way, and this makes that although it becomes much more profitable economically, the relationship with the soil and with the crop is lost as such. By means of these products, what we do mainly is to preserve the soil to prolong the life of a crop. If a crop is for an average of 10 years, with traditional fertilization we seek to reach more or less 20 years, even 30, and even that the crop is not perennial but completely long-lived over time. At this point we are showing the composting process. What is composting? It is transforming organic waste, but already on an industrial scale, in the pile that we are seeing on the left. Obviously this is not done by hand as we are doing now, but by means of a conveyor belt. What is happening is that we are converting the plant, but there where the two of them are, there must be a conveyor belt feeding. It is a machine that has 25 kilowatts and rotates at 3,600 revolutions per minute, so whatever it picks up it is capable of breaking it up. It has such force that one day it picked up a screw and lifted almost 100 meters at the bottom. So what that machine remembers is capable of reducing the size of the material. What is the purpose of reducing the size of the material? To the extent that the size is smaller, the composting process is faster. So we reduce it in size so that the composting is faster and more efficient. To have a material like that, a thick pile, after the material comes out very fine, as it is coming out there, after it comes out there, it is transformed and a pile is made. A compost pile like the one you have here. That compost pile is then mounted on a machine called a turner that turns the material every certain time, every 8 days in our case, so that the process is accelerated and we can obtain compost in a maximum of 70 days. So material, pile of material, chopped, stacked, turned, final product. While in vermicomposting we talk about 10 or 20 tons, here we talk about 600-800,000 tons of transformation process. So composting allows moving large volumes or transforming large volumes of organic matter. Along with vermicomposting, we have our line number 2, all products are made from. As such, we handle 5 types of products for agriculture: fertilizers and organic fertilizers, which are mixtures combined with different types of minerals applied to any crop depending on its nutritional requirements. We have here, then, all the necessary machinery to carry out these processes of mixtures to be carried out homogeneously, so that all the products that we produce here are in accordance with what our ICA licenses say, and as such to provide the customer and the agricultural producer with a product of excellent quality and in very easy assimilation, which is something that we also have as a slogan, which is that the product really is what we say and that it is associated to the soil as quickly as possible to provide the crop with the greatest expression of nutrition as such. What we want as a company dedicated to strengthening agriculture is that we return to the soil to recover the characteristics, benefits and advantages of the soil, and that is one of the advantages and opportunities that vermicompost offers, so that an agricultural producer, of any type of crop, palm, coffee, cocoa, pineapple, rubber, citrus, wants to look for vermicompost as a soil conditioner. It is not a fertilizer, but within the soil conditioners it is the product with the highest microbial load, scientifically measured, yes. In the market there are other soil conditioners such as poultry manure and chicken manure, but unfortunately if they are not well managed, sometimes they do more damage to the crop than the benefits that a crop can receive, so I have already shown that the odor of this product is totally innocuous. Worm compost should not smell bad, it should smell like fresh soil, but the advantage when this product is applied to the soil is that first, it is immediately assimilated, and second, the microbial load that it puts on the soil that receives it is such that any nutrition that is put on it will be assimilated very quickly by the plant, and that is why this is one of the advantages of worm compost. It serves as a sponge to retain nutrients, to retain humidity. This is one of the advantages of this product. Obviously, if we compare the processing times of a poultry manure or a chicken manure, a poultry manure takes 42 days in a shed to be applied raw on a crop. Here in a bed of these we take between 4 and 6 months to get a totally innocuous product, zero odor, fast assimilation, and that will make many benefits to the crop that receives it. Normally, what is the final cycle of a large company's waste? It is to pick it up, pass it to each collector, put it in a collection cart, take it to the carrasco, put it on the ground and cover it. That is the normal process that is done in most Colombian cities. We saw the opportunity that there were companies that generated waste that could work for us as a company. We knocked on the door, they looked, they came, obviously they made visits and realized that our processes were really effective, clean, well managed, complying with the regulations. Then the companies come to our plant at some points, they dispose of their waste, we give them the management, transformation, chopping, stacking, composting, yes. We generate a final product and, in some way, the company in return receives a certificate that its waste was received, transformed and converted into a final product that is favorable for a farmer. Today we want to show you the physical differences of 3 of our main products in the market. The first thing I want to point out is that the basis of each of our products is pure vermicompost. It is a base that allows any type of crop to assimilate in a much faster way all the nutrients that each of these 3 products can provide. Let's start with what is pure vermicompost. It is a brown-colored product. It is a product whose concentration of cation exchange capacity allows any crop to assimilate all types of nutrients that are retained in the soil or that are provided. Therefore, throughout a fertilization process, the following product is a very basic and very simple soil conditioner. It retains the same texture of a worm compost, the same color, however, it is a little clearer because it is a mixture of different minerals to provide not only a very solid organic base, but also a charge to the soil that allows it to recover from any type of acidity that it is handling at that moment. And finally we have here our organic mineral fertilizer. As you can see, it is the same color as the two previous products, because as I was saying, what we are looking for is to always maintain an organic charge that allows the soil to be coupled to all the nutrients, and in the same way it provides several types of minerals necessary in any type of soil. It has the necessary contributions of nitrogen, and nitrate. The soil is provided with the necessary nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus, thus allowing the crop to express its greatest productive capacity and achieving not only a good production for the farmer, but also preserving the soil and allowing the production to be postponed for several periods. We entered green business 3 long years ago because we had a contact, a very well-known person, many years ago, and he told us about the possibility of certifying our company as a green business. We already started from the fact that the company was a green business, for what we did, but we did not have that seal and that certification that valued us in this way. We found as such in green business, first, a springboard to show the community to other companies the work we do, which currently was, well, not currently, if it was not focused much more on the private sector, we were not so interested in showing the community, in showing other companies, in showing the government that we had sustainable and economically profitable alternatives to take care of the environment. After we entered the green business program, we had an abysmal improvement because we found that the processes we were doing were good, but we had to improve them to be able to make synergy, as such, with this green seal to be on par with what the seal demanded of us to be completely sustainable and to guarantee that we were doing and the processes we were handling here were actually contributing to the environment. Well, this is a work of 15 years already, but we want to continue growing, first on an industrial scale, on an economic scale, obviously, but we also want to be much closer to the community because in some way this makes us. This is a work for the community, obviously generates economic returns for us. But the community is benefited, so we want to get closer to the community, serve them more, provide better solutions, and in some way legally frame them in what it means to grow.